Hello there, and welcome to Dream Myths. An ancient fear poisons the galaxy, a deep-seated revulsion that taints even the farthest star systems. It is a primal loathing for those gifted with mysterious powers that transcend mortal understanding. These rare individuals can manipulate objects with their minds, control the actions of others, and even glimpse events yet to come. Such abilities, often manifesting as unusual capabilities from childhood, are seen not as gifts, but as cursed talents. They are a cosmic favor that, if discovered, guarantees only distrust and fear from a cruel universe. Many worlds harbor derisive legends about these beings, myths filled with tales of demonic perversion and twisted souls. Thus, a climate of fear has driven these gifted individuals to mask their true nature, forcing them to exist only in the shadows. They are known by the pejorative name of spawner, a term that labels them as abominations and freaks. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, a few enlightened scientists have dared to study these phenomena. They refer to these individuals as the altered, a clinical term devoid of the malice and superstition of the masses. Yet, their research remains a fringe endeavor, overshadowed by the pervasive fear that governs society. Driven by this prejudice, spawners are forced into a life of concealment. Many have sought refuge in the sprawling scrap heaps of vast metropolises, eking out a desperate existence on discarded scraps of food. In these forgotten corners, they are ghosts, a forgotten class of beings reduced to scavenging and survival. On some planets, the fear has evolved into a more systematic and brutal form of oppression. Here, healing camps have been established to cure children who exhibit these abilities. Through a regimen of cruel and barbaric methods, these facilities seek to strip away their uncanny reflexes and disturbed, burgeoning visions, turning them into soulless puppets stripped of their unique essence. The goal is to force them to blend in, to quell their cosmic favor so they may never again be screamed at as a monster. The universe is a harsh place for the extraordinary, and this is the price they pay for simply existing. Tonight, we'll journey to a galaxy far, far away. We'll begin our story on a remote, unforgiving planet where oppression and danger haunt those secretly gifted with powers beyond explanation. The planet of Craar. The hatred of spawners runs deeper here than anywhere else in the known galaxy. On this harsh world, a young man named Joran, known only as Slave 72, is forced to conceal his uncanny talents deep within himself. He toils in endless tunnels beneath the planet's surface, scraping for precious resources under flickering work lamps. His shovel unearths invaluable ore for his merciless master, Lord Dravos, a man who would have any spawner freak executed on sight. A faint echo from deep within the tunnel lines heralded catastrophe. Joran didn't hesitate, dropping his tools and plunging into the gloom on powerful legs. His innate sense for precarious rocks and beams guided him rapidly toward the screams of collapsing stone. Skidding around a corner, Joran saw the disaster. 3 miners were crying out and scrambling as a substantial section of the ceiling cracked and began to give way. Without a thought, Joran stretched out a broad hand, feeling desperately into that void within him where his untamed abilities roiled. He met the terrified gaze of the nearest miner, who was pinned by debris, and somehow Joran halted the deadly rain of stone just inches before them. His entire massive frame trembled with the effort, teeth gritted, brow dripping with sweat, as he struggled to activate forces he could not even name. Friend and foe alike stared in disbelief and primal awe at Slave 72's unfathomable power. His true nature laid bare for all to see. The tunnel continued to groan under the lethal weight, and Joran felt his unprecedented abilities weakening. The debris began to slip downwards once more. He thought desperately of his mother Mara, a courtesan for Lord Dravos, and her counsel to hide his talents at all costs. It was too late. He was exposed before numerous witnesses. Joran had only one choice if he wished to save anyone, including himself. With a hoarse shout, he drew once more on the energy humming within him, an energy from unknown dimensions. Through his straining limbs, he forced the debris backward in a titanic eruption from his shaking palm, sending the avalanche reversing into Tunnel 9. As the falling rock faded, Joran sank to his knees, utterly spent, with visions flickering before his eyes. He knew Lord Dravos' soldiers would arrive any second to shackle the spawner freak exposed by chance. Joran braced for the rough hands wrenching his arms behind his back. Terrified miners mumbled freak and demon as he passed. Joran could have fought his way free, but they knew his secret now. If he resisted, his beloved mother would surely pay the price at the hands of Lord Dravos. Chained and shackled, Joran knelt on the cold, unforgiving flagstones of the great hall. He bowed his head, a gesture of submission that belied the turmoil within. From his perch on a high throne, Lord Dravos surveyed his new prize. A cruel smirk twisting his lips. A tunnel rat with hidden talents, he sneered, his voice echoing with predatory amusement. Who would have thought? He rose and descended the steps, his armored boots clanging with a sound of finality. Reaching Joran, he seized him by the neck, his grip as cold as the iron chains. If you ever defy me again, he whispered, a chilling threat in his words, I'll end your life right here. His face contorted into a cunning smile. You will be a useful tool, Joran, he declared, and I will use you to cement my dominion. To prove his absolute power, Dravos demanded a demonstration. Obey, or your mother dies immediately, he stated, his icy gaze sweeping across the anxious courtiers. With a heavy heart, Joran focused his will on a pewter cup on a nearby table. It began to tremble, as if stirred by an invisible hand, then soared through the air to land perfectly in his shackled hand. The hull fell silent, awestruck by Joran's raw, untamed power. Not satisfied, Dravos ordered Joran to kill his own executioner to prove his loyalty. Repulsed, Joran had no choice but to obey. He stretched a trembling palm toward the soldier, focusing his power on the man's throat. The soldier gasped, his face turning a ghastly shade of blue. Then, with a sickening snap, his neck went limp. But Joran was shocked to see the man didn't die. He had only fainted. Dravos erupted in a fit of laughter, revealing it was a test of Joran's power, a cruel game to assess the full extent of his abilities. The courtiers erupted in applause as Dravos congratulated Joran, naming him the realm's new executioner. The tyrant leaned in close, whispering into Joran's ear, "You must use your power to serve me. Otherwise, your mother might not survive." It was a deadly promise, an undeniable threat that bound Joran to a life he never wanted. Joran existed in a state of suspended agony, a waking nightmare of corrupted luxury. He was a prisoner in a gilded cage, isolated and seen by all as less than human. His purpose was singular and grim, to be trotted out only when Lord Dravos wished to flaunt the powers of his pet spawner. The spectacle was a morbid form of entertainment for the nobility, where Joran was forced to execute the tyrant's enemies, their deaths a cruel performance for a rapt audience. Yet, unbeknownst to his captors, Joran had found a way to resist, a subtle act of defiance that preserved a shred of his soul. He used his powers to conjure a potent illusion, a waking nightmare that caused his victims to writhe in agony, their cries and pleas providing the macabre theater the nobles craved. but he did not kill them. He only inflicted a semblance of death, an act that saved his victims but did not save him from the psychological toll. With each violent act, whether real or a fabricated illusion, a piece of his spirit was leached away, leaving him hollow and weary. In those moments of profound emptiness, he clung to the memory of his mother, Mara, as his only truth. Her words echoed in his mind, a mantra of survival. "My son, you've done what you had to do to survive." To combat the creeping rot within, Joran sought solace in meditation, a desperate effort to fortify his spirit. He was determined not to become the monster they expected him to be. Yet, he was losing the battle. He felt the monster in darkness growing inside him, a palpable presence that swelled with every act of violence. He wrestled with the insidious whispers in his mind, struggling to suppress the dark impulses that threatened to consume him entirely. He was a man caught between two worlds, the one that sought to destroy him, and the one within him that yearned to take its place. As evening fell, while Joran attempted to quiet the chaos within through meditation, he was startled by a voice that whispered from a shadowy alcove. It belonged to a tall, raven-haired girl named Zara, a slave who worked for the city's under mechanics. She had used her abilities to infiltrate the city's electrical systems, gathering intelligence on other imprisoned individuals. Zara sensed a profound energy within Joran, what she called the Force, and declared it to be uncontrolled, chaotic. To prove to Joran that he was not alone, Zara demonstrated her own power, a controlled elegance to his raw, untamed strength. With a mere thought, she lifted a tool from her kit, holding it suspended in the air with unwavering focus. Joran was captivated, sensing a unique energy radiating from her, a shared connection he had never felt before. Zara promised to help him, explaining that she could communicate directly with the Force, its voice echoing in her mind. Zara led Joran through a labyrinth of cramped, winding tunnels to a hidden chamber. There, Joran was astonished to find a dozen other slaves, all radiating ripples of the Force. This group of outcasts and runaways had secretly gathered beneath Craar's crust, a clandestine brotherhood forged from shared oppression. An imposing man named Ro greeted Joran, explaining that he too had suppressed his gifts until Zara had taught him control. Zara informed Joran that they share a unique bond and a unique opportunity. Ro then unveiled their plan, a coordinated sabotage to free all the slaves by collapsing Dravos' minds. During the ensuing riot, the spawners would use their powers to escape the planet and find a new life of freedom beyond Craar's brutal grasp. It was a bold, ambitious plan, and for the first time, Joran saw a glimmer of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. Joran listened to their grandiose visions with profound unease, his gut churning with a sense of impending doom. He recoiled from their ambitions, unable to see anything but a cataclysmic end, a fate crueler than death itself. If Dravos were to crush their deluded insurgency, he argued that their stealth and lies were no match for Dravos's brutal strength, a force he knew intimately. His voice, thick with a bitter sadness, was a harsh contrast to their naive optimism. "You are all fools," he said, his gaze sweeping over their hopeful faces. "You cannot deal with Dravos. If you do anything foolish, everyone will bear the consequences." He trembled before the silent, expectant group, whispering, "You shouldn't have brought me here. I won't be a part of this." He turned away, leaving Zara's pleading echoes behind him. In his eyes, this was no revolution, but a slaughter in the making. He had witnessed Dravos's brutality firsthand, and he knew that this rebellion would bring nothing but suffering and death to all involved. He was tired of fighting, and his only remaining desire was to protect the few he still held dear. Though his heart was breaking, he had to walk away, carrying with him the weight of his despair and the fear for their impending doom. The following day, Joran was marched to the central platform like a puppet in a tyrant's gruesome play. This time, however, the spectacle was not for the execution of a foe, but for a personal, brutal drama. Among the shackled and bloodied prisoners, Joran's gaze fell upon a sight that filled him with a sickening dread. His mother, Mara, bruised and trembling. She had been captured, tortured mercilessly to reveal Joran's secret. Yet she had remained silent, protecting her son to the very end. Joran's desperate pleas to Lord Dravos were met with a cruel, mocking laugh. "Mara has been hiding treasonous secrets for years." The tyrant sneered, savoring Joran's anguish. Mara lifted her eyes to Joran, and in their depths he saw profound, unsettling peace, a serene acceptance of her fate. "It's okay, my son," she said, her voice filled with a heartbreaking love and resolve. "It's all going to be okay." Dravos, his eyes glinting with malicious glee, announced that Mara had one final, crucial piece of knowledge to impart to Joran before her death. With the proud defiance of a mother who had nothing left to lose. Mara proclaimed that Dravos was Joran's father, and she had been his private courtesan who kept Joran a secret from him all his life. "You must live, Joran," she said, her voice a final, powerful testament to her love. "You must live for both of us." As Joran crumpled to his knees, tears streaming down his face, Mara closed her eyes. He felt a surge of energy from her, a final farewell. She used the Force, the very power she had hidden her entire life, to take her own life. Joran desperately tried to stop her, but his mother's power blocked him, an impenetrable shield of a mother's sacrifice. She had chosen death to ensure his survival. Joran held his mother's limp body as the horrified crowd screamed, believing he had killed her. Mara's blood mixed with Joran's tears, igniting a burning fire of hatred in his heart. In the wake of that fateful moment, Mara's sacrifice ignited a furious blaze within Joran, incinerating every last vestige of his fear and doubt. He abandoned the public platform and plunged into the shadows, a man transformed, seeking out the hidden Alliance den. When he stood before Zara and her band of outcasts, his voice was no longer that of a frightened slave, but a resonant and commanding declaration. "It's time. I will lead your rebellion." The fire of hope had been lit, and it spread like wildfire. The outcasts, now under Joran's command, fought against Dravos's guards. Joran, channeling his raw power, created a colossal illusion, a phantom army that made the soldiers believe they were fighting a massive force. This spectacle sowed panic and shattered their formations, giving the rebels a decisive advantage. The outcasts achieved their first victories, infiltrating Dravos's compounds and publicly wielding the Force to ignite a planet-wide sabotage. Most of the slave forces joined the insurrection, but the larger public, steeped in years of prejudice, fled in terror from the demon spawner they had been taught to hate. During a failed breach of Dravos's heavily fortified fortress, Ro, the imposing leader, sacrificed himself to protect Joran and Zara. With his last breath, Ro imparted a final, profound message to Joran. "Do not forget what we fight for. It is freedom, not revenge." Ro's death served as a stark reminder that this new generation had to carry on the revolutionary spark. Only a handful of spawner rebels survived the attack, but they vowed to honor their fallen comrade by completing their escape. The remaining rebels dismantled garrisons and transmitted their message of upheaval system-wide. When despair threatened to swallow them whole, Joran would rally his kin by invoking the memory of his mother's defiance. He transformed his pain and loss into a formidable strength, using it to fight for a better future, a future that both his mother and Ro had died to create. Eventually, only Joran and Zara remained of the Alliance leadership. They had survived countless battles and witnessed the loss of their comrades. Their resolve, however, was stronger than ever. They were no longer fighting for a cause, but for the memory of the fallen. They ascended the winding stairs to Dravos' stronghold, their hearts thudding in unison, their bodies radiating with an unstoppable shared energy. In the carnivore throne room, they found Dravos waiting, a grotesque figure on his throne, protected by a stoic wall of spear-wielding guards. He mocked Joran, a venomous smile spreading across his face. "My bastard spawn's son," he spat, his voice filled with contempt. "I gave you a purpose, a reason to live, and this is how you repay me." Joran's fists clenched, his jaw set in a steely line. "Your choking grip ends today," he declared, his voice echoing with the weight of his mother's sacrifice and Ro's final words. Dravos laughed, a chilling, hollow sound. "You're not the first," he sneered. "I had another son with similar gifts. I killed him because he couldn't control his power. You will meet the same fate." This revelation sent a wave of cold fury through Joran. Before Dravos' guards could advance, Joran and Zara cried out in unison, their voices a symphony of rage and sorrow. They channeled their combined power, a force so potent it made the guards' bodies convulse and collapse, their spears clattering to the floor. Joran then turned his gaze to Dravos, his eyes burning with an unholy fire. He stretched out a hand, his power clamping around Dravos' throat, slowly strangling the tyrant. Dravos' eyes bulged, his hands clawing at his neck as he struggled for air. But Joran showed no mercy. He had suffered too much, lost too much. He tightened his grip, the air growing colder and colder until only icy silence remained. Joran had won, but the cost was a part of his soul. After the tyranny of Lord Dravos was extinguished, a cold victory descended upon Craar. Joran and Zara walked amongst the freed citizens, but their triumph was met not with cheers, but with fearful eyes and terrified whispers. The very people they had liberated recoiled from them, their voices rising in a chorus of hatred, screaming monsters and demons. An old woman spat at Joran's boots, her face contorted with loathing as she hissed, "Gifted demons herald only darkness." Another citizen, brave or foolish enough to speak his mind, confronted Joran directly, declaring, "We would rather have died than live under the control of a devil like you." The rebel spark, once a roaring flame of hope, was now a guttering ember. Joran and Zara were left isolated, their monumental victory proving to be a hollow one. They had won liberty for a planet that wanted no part of them, a crushing realization that left them with nowhere to call home. As their starship lifted off from the hostile world, they remembered Ro's dying wish to spark lasting change. His words became their new purpose. Joran plotted a course for the isolated world of AKU-2, a sanctuary he had glimpsed in Zara's Force visions. The journey was long and silent, a period of introspection and healing. Upon their arrival, they climbed to a lonely, windswept mountain peak, a world away from the hatred they had left behind. There, under a new sky, they made a sacred vow to use their powers only for good, to be a beacon of light in a universe that only saw darkness. Zara, her heart filled with a new vision, spoke of building a temple on that peak, a place of solace and guidance for other lost spawners. Joran's shadowed gaze kindled, a flicker of hope in his weary eyes. He agreed, a new purpose filling the void left by his anger and sorrow. He declared that the Force had given them a new name, one that would embody their new covenant. "We shall be called Jedi," he stated with newfound conviction. Together, they toiled, using their amplified strength to carve a central sanctuary and meditation alcoves into the mountain. One evening, Zara returned from a solo mission, her face radiating with a quiet triumph. In her hands, she held a new item she had meticulously forged. She ignited it, and a humming, brilliant blue blade of pure energy sprang forth from a metal hilt. Joran stared, his jaw slack with awe. "What is that?" he asked. "The first lightsaber," Zara replied, her voice soft with reverence. "A symbol of our new covenant." And so, with a new order founded and its first sacred tool forged, the Jedi Order waited patiently to emerge from the shadows. Joran's burden is heavy, made heavier by the ghost of his father, another spawner who could no longer endure the relentless oppression. Unable to bear the weight of a life lived in fear, Joran's father took his own life, a silent testament to the cruelty of their world. This tragedy serves as a constant, haunting reminder of the fate that awaits anyone who reveals their true nature. Joran's survival depends on his ability to feel the subtle tremors in the bedrock, vibrations that whisper like warnings along his shovel's handle. This innate sense allows him to detect impending collapses, a skill that keeps him and his fellow slaves alive. One day, while tracing a particularly faint tremor, he stumbles upon a secret passageway. In this hidden tunnel, he catches a glimpse of a greater treasure buried deep within the earth. Not ore, but something far more valuable. A secret that could change his destiny forever.